Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new around here, I'm Sam and I make tip videos and tutorials every week to help you improve your art. This week I'm going to be going through how I drew this unicorn, if you can see it in the light. So it's a silhouette with a wet and wet method of watercolour and a few different techniques to create the snowy sky and then the silhouette of the tree and the unicorn. You can also apply it to lots of different things. I've created a tree silhouette with a wintry sky and also a moon gazing hare. I don't know if you can see that, a stag with a wintry Christmas tree theme. So these would be great for a child's bedroom or playroom or something like that. Really great gifts, especially for Christmas coming up, and they take under an hour to create, and I'm just going to talk you through how I created those now. I hope you enjoy the video. So I'm starting off by wetting the paper with a really large brush, and I'm making sure that I'm covering every inch of the paper because this is what's going to help the colours to bleed. So I'm going back and forward, up and down, and making sure that every inch is covered. So you can see when I'm adding my watercolour paint, which is very watery as well, that it will start to just bleed out and spread across the paper really evenly, and that's what's going to help with any harsh lines. It's all going to be nice and soft even when you add all of the colours together. So going in with some blues, I'm going in for kind of a mystical, magical unicorn scene here, and adding some darker pinks and some darker blues, and just making sure that you can see how the pink and the blue mix together to make purple. So I'm going in with a lighter layer to begin with and then adding some darker colours, which just means that I'm adding a bit less water just to highlight, because what I want this to look like is like a cotton candy floss cloudy sky, and intensifying the pinks and the purples and the blues a little bit later on and leaving the pinks. So I'm just dabbing the brush onto the paper. You can see it's starting to buckle. It's really wet, but the colours are just bleeding out and spreading across the paper really nicely. The great thing about this is that you don't actually know how it's going to end up. It's all a little bit of trial and error, but that's the fun. So you can see how it's dried now. You can see some clouds, it's kind of spread, and there's like a wintry look all across the sky. And now I'm going to go in with some white gouache with an old toothbrush, obviously one that's not being used anymore, and using this directly above the paper, I'm going to just flick the white gouache onto the paper to create the starry night look. And you'll get some big splodges and some small splodges, and you just flick around. The great thing with this is you can cover up any bits that you weren't quite happy with. I didn't quite like the pink cloud on the right, it looked a little bit harsh. Now I'm going in with some black and just going across the bottom to create the ground. So not adding a lot of water here, so it's really intense. If you wanted to watch this tutorial in real time, then it is over on my Patreon. So for a small amount per month, you can gain access to all of the tutorials over there, adding new ones every month. So just going over the ground and making sure that it's nice and crisp. There aren't any blurry edges to the top of the ground. And I'm mapping in the tree now. So I'm going in for a tree that's leaning slightly in the wind, not one that's completely upright. I thought that might make the picture look a little bit more interesting. So just mapping all of the branches. The great thing with this is you can just use your imagination. So I'm not using a reference photo for this tree, I'm just making it up as I go along, which is great. One thing to just watch is to think about the anatomy or the structure of a tree. So you'll tend to find that the branches tend to fork towards the end. They are narrower towards the end, and they don't have any blunt edges. So I'm going in with a slightly larger brush to begin with. I'm using a number 1 here, and then I'm going to go in with a very tiny brush and add the little twigs at the end. So I'm just mapping out the skeleton of the tree, just adding some little branches until I'm happy with how that looks. Making sure they overlap as well, it's not completely uniform. And some little nodules to making sure it's just not perfect. Now I'm going to go into the unicorn. So I'm using a very tiny brush here, 000, and I'm very carefully, because the problem is with this kind of painting is that if you make a mistake, you're not going to be able to lift that black paint back up again. So taking your time, going nice and slowly, lining it to begin with and then filling it in once you're happy with the structure. I have sketched it to begin with. Some of it's a little bit covered up, so I've had to improvise slightly, but I can see the basic outline of the unicorn. Just adding some little details. So taking your time, adding the tail. So again, you don't have to really use a reference photo here. I think it's quite good to sketch it out to begin with, just because you can't make any mistakes. But this will apply to any animal, any scene that you want to create. It works really well. And just adding the mane with little tiny brush strokes, the ears, and finally the horn, really carefully. Now you can see I'm using this tiny little brush to go in with the branches now, and adding those little twigs and making sure that the end of the branch just finishes in a really light, very fine twig, which is more true to life. Just going over the whole of the tree, making sure they overlap. And the final touch, just adding a little bit of grass to make it look a bit more interesting. Short strokes, long strokes, and the really fun bit, peeling off the washi tape and seeing that lovely crisp line, one of the best parts. And there's the finished piece. You can see the gouache with the sparkly starry sky and how the colours have all bled in nicely together. And there's the finished picture. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some helpful hints on how to create your own watercolour work of art. I am going to be uploading a video very soon, just going through some different techniques for creating backgrounds, snowy scenes, that kind of a thing. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then please don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and click that bell icon to make sure that you don't miss out on future videos. Share this video with your friends, and I really look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.